The rain hammered against the windows of our little cottage in the Cotswolds, a relentless rhythm mirroring the turmoil in my gut. My name is Alaric, and until a few weeks ago I thought I had it all. I'm 44, an IT specialist working remotely, which allowed my wife, Bronte, to pursue her passion as a potter. We'd been married for 15 years, a seemingly idyllic life built on trust and shared dreams. Or so I thought. It started subtly. Bronte, always vibrant and talkative, became withdrawn. Late nights at the pottery studio, she claimed, deadlines looming. I didn't suspect a thing. I'm not a jealous man by nature, and I trusted her implicitly. That was my first mistake. The first flicker of doubt came during our anniversary dinner. We were at the Wild Rabbit, our favorite gastropub in Kingham. Bronte was unusually quiet, her eyes distant, unfocused. When I reached for her hand, she flinched, a barely perceptible movement, but enough to prick my senses. "Everything all right, love?" I asked, my voice laced with concern. "Fine, fine," she replied, a little too quickly. "Just tired. The kiln's been playing up and I'm behind on a big commission." I wanted to believe her, but a nagging unease had taken root in my mind. I tried to shake it off, attributing it to stress, work, anything but the unthinkable. The next few weeks were a blur of mounting suspicion and desperate attempts to rationalize Bronte's behavior. She began taking her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. Her calls were hushed, whispered conversations that ceased abruptly when I entered the room. I noticed a new perfume, a scent I hadn't bought her, a heady, musky fragrance that clung to her clothes. "New perfume?" I asked casually one evening. "Oh, this," she said, feigning surprise. "A friend at the studio gave it to me, said she didn't like it. Do you?" I sniffed the air. "It's different," I said, carefully choosing my words. "Not really my taste." She shrugged, dismissing my comment with a wave of her hand. "Well, I like it." The turning point came on a Tuesday. I had a rare day off, and Bronte had told me she was going to the studio to glaze some pieces. Around lunchtime, I decided to surprise her with a sandwich and a cup of tea. The studio was about a 15-minute drive from our cottage, nestled in a converted barn on the outskirts of the village. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a car parked behind Bronte's. A sleek silver Audi TT, a car I didn't recognize. I frowned. Maybe it belonged to a client. I pushed the thought aside and walked towards the barn, the sandwich and tea carefully balanced in my hands. The door to the studio was slightly ajar. As I pushed it open, I heard voices. Bronte's voice and another, a man's voice, low and husky. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Intimate, playful. I took a tentative step closer, peering through the gap in the door. What I saw shattered my world into a million pieces. Bronte was standing in the center of the studio, her arms wrapped around a man. Not just any man. Caelan, our neighbor. The man who had mowed our lawn last summer and whom we had had over for dinner several times. They were kissing. A deep, passionate kiss that left no room for doubt. My breath caught in my throat, a strangled gasp that betrayed my presence. Bronte pulled away from Caelan, her eyes widening in horror as she saw me standing there, the sandwich and tea tumbling to the floor. "Alaric," she exclaimed, her voice laced with panic. "It's not what you think." I stared at her, my mind reeling, unable to process what I was seeing. "Not what I think," I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm standing here watching you kiss our neighbor. What am I supposed to think?" Caelan stepped forward, his face a mask of guilt and embarrassment. "Alaric, I can explain," he stammered. "There's nothing to explain," I roared, my anger finally erupting. "I saw you, both of you, in my wife's studio, kissing." Bronte started to cry, her face crumpling. "Alaric, please just listen to me," she pleaded. "It was a mistake, it didn't mean anything." "A mistake?" I scoffed. "A mistake you've been making for how long? The late nights at the studio, the hushed phone calls, the new perfume." Was that all a mistake too? She didn't answer, her silence confirming my worst fears. I turned to Caelan, my fists clenched. "Get out," I said, my voice low and menacing. "Get out of here and never come near my wife or my house again." Caelan didn't need to be told twice. He scurried out of the studio, his head bowed in shame. I turned back to Bronte, my heart aching with a pain I had never known. "How could you?" I asked, my voice breaking. "How could you do this to me, to us?" She sobbed, her body shaking. "I don't know," she wailed. "I was unhappy, I felt neglected." "You were always working." "Neglected," I repeated, incredulous. I worked to provide for us, to give you the life you wanted, and this is how you repay me, by sleeping with our neighbor. It just happened, she said, her voice barely audible. We were talking and one thing led to another, one thing led to another. I repeated, my anger rising again. So you just couldn't help yourself. You couldn't resist the temptation. Is that what you're telling me? She didn't answer, her silence speaking volumes. I stared at her, my eyes filled with disgust and disbelief. I don't even know you anymore, I said, my voice cold and hard. The woman I married would never do something like this. I turned and walked out of the studio, leaving Bronte sobbing in the middle of the room. I drove back to our cottage, my mind racing, my heart shattered. I couldn't stay there, not even for another minute. I packed a bag, grabbed my laptop and left, not knowing where I was going, but knowing I couldn't stay in that house, in that life any longer. I drove aimlessly for hours, the rain still lashing against the windows, the wipers struggling to keep up. I ended up in a small coastal town in Devon, drawn by the sound of the waves crashing against the shore. I checked into a small bed and breakfast, the salty air filling my lungs, a small respite from the suffocating pain in my chest. The next few days were a blur of sleepless nights, endless cups of coffee, and unanswered questions. I replayed the scene in the studio over and over in my mind, each time feeling the same gut-wrenching pain. How could she do this to me? What had I done to deserve this? I called my best friend, Gideon, and told him everything. He was shocked and supportive, offering words of comfort and encouragement. "You need to get out of there, Alaric," he said. "You can't stay in that marriage. She's betrayed you in the worst possible way." I knew he was right. I couldn't forgive Bronte. I couldn't forget what I had seen. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. I called a solicitor and started the divorce proceedings. Bronte didn't contest it. She knew she had messed up, and she knew there was no going back. The divorce was finalized a few months later. I moved out of the cottage and into a small apartment in Bristol. I started seeing a therapist to help me deal with the emotional fallout of the betrayal. It was a long and painful process, but slowly, gradually, I began to heal. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the challenges and distractions it provided. I started running again, rediscovering my love for the outdoors. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I started to rebuild my life piece by piece. One evening, about a year after the divorce, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a picture of Bronte and Caelan. They were standing outside the pottery studio looking miserable. Caelan was holding a baby. The message read, "Karma is a bitch." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I knew what had happened. Caelan's wife had found out about the affair and she had left him, taking their children with her. Bronte and Caelan were now stuck together, burdened by a child and the wreckage of their past. They had destroyed their lives for a fleeting moment of passion, and now they were paying the price. I felt a pang of satisfaction, a sense of justice served. But it was fleeting. It didn't bring Bronte and me back together. It didn't erase the pain and betrayal. It just confirmed what I already knew, that cheating always has consequences, and that sometimes karma is the only revenge you need. I deleted the message and took a deep breath. I was finally free. Free from Bronte, free from the past, free to start anew. I had lost everything, but I had also gained something. A newfound sense of self-worth, a resilience I never knew I possessed, and a determination to never let anyone treat me that way again. I learned a valuable lesson from this experience, that trust is a fragile thing, easily broken, and that sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who are capable of hurting you the deepest. But I also learned that you can survive betrayal, that you can heal from heartbreak, and that you can emerge from the ashes stronger and wiser than before. Life isn't always fair, and sometimes bad things happen to good people, but it's how you respond to those challenges that defines you. I chose to rise above the pain, to forgive but not forget, and to create a new life for myself, a life filled with love, laughter, and genuine happiness. And that, in the end, is the best revenge of all. Sometime later, I was browsing social media when I saw a post from a mutual friend. It was a picture of Bronte and Caelan. They looked worn and tired, standing in front of a small, dilapidated pottery stall at a local market. The caption read, "Supporting local artisans." I felt a twinge of pity, but it quickly faded. They had made their choices and now they were living with the consequences. I scrolled past the picture and continued with my day, my heart lighter than it had been in years. I had moved on and they were stuck in the past. I eventually met someone new, a kind and compassionate woman named Isolde. She was everything Bronte wasn't: honest, loyal, and supportive. We built a relationship based on trust and mutual respect, and I finally found the happiness I had been searching for. Looking back on that dark period of my life, I realized that Bronte's betrayal was a turning point. It forced me to confront my vulnerabilities, to reevaluate my priorities, and to create a life that was truly authentic and fulfilling. It was a painful journey, but it led me to a place where I could finally be happy. And so I close this chapter of my life with a sense of closure and gratitude. I am grateful for the lessons I learned, for the strength I found within myself, and for the love that eventually found its way back into my heart. Bronte's betrayal may have broken me for a while, but it also made me who I am today, a stronger, wiser, and more resilient man.